Yes, I have no beard, yes, this is Retro Game On, and yes, this is a review for Banjo Kazooie from the Nintendo 64. Banjo Kazooie was a forerunner for Nintendo 64 games. It was released by the then legendary developer, Rare. So this game was released on the 29th of June 1998 in America and on the 17th of July, also 1998, in Europe. It was probably released in Australia about that time too, but no one seems to care, no matter how much I yell. Banjo Kazooie had a very long development cycle for the time, clocking in at over 2.5 years. It was actually originally intended for the Super Nintendo, but instead became a standout classic for the Nintendo 64. In this review I won't focus on the story so much because it is a huge game. There was actually already a game save on there that was over 24 hours long, which I mentioned in the blog post not too long ago. Someone put in the hard work, so there it shall stay immortalized. It's a bit sad really, because I mean someone put in the hard work and they probably just ended up selling it to a thrift store for probably not very much at all. So yeah, I just don't have the heart to delete it. So basically the game is set out like this. There's this ugly witch named Gruntilda. She's just like an old hag, and she finds out from a particularly blunt cauldron that she isn't the most beautiful thing ever. So she sets out to kidnap Banjo's sister, Tooty, and use this big machine to steal her looks and just general youthfulness. Basically the whole game is set around going into Gruntilda's lair and rescuing Tooty from, well, Gruntilda. So at the start of the game you're thrown into a lot of in-game tutorials, which is pretty rare of a game that's that old. With the old games you used to just rely on a physical instruction manual so you could figure out what to do. But obviously I bought this second hand, so I didn't get an instruction manual. So it was good. I could just play the tutorials and learn how to play the game instead of having to hunt down an online instruction manual, which I usually have to do. They're pretty well integrated into the game as well, not ridiculously strenuous like it can be in other games. Looking at you, Deus Ex. Plus the fact that you can skip them is also very ahead of the time. I mean, it's like they knew this was going to become a cult classic which would be played over and over in years to come. I mean, obviously you don't have to play the tutorials again if you already know how to play it. So one of the standouts of this game is just by the sheer amount of characters that are in it, and just how so many of them have so much personality as well. It really adds to the game so much. Honestly, if this game didn't have the personality, it would just be another platformer you can add to the piles of platformers that have been released over the years. It would still be a good platformer, but it wouldn't be like the Banjo Kazooie we know today. So in this game you control both Banjo and Kazooie at the same time, which is a cool twist for a platformer. So Banjo is a primary method of transportation in this game. You use them to run around, jump, and also somersault. So Kazooie handles a lot more. This includes flying, shooting eggs, pecking, and most hilariously, picking up Banjo to run up tight slopes with her hilarious birdie legs. Using the thumbstick to control Banjo and Kazooie can sometimes lead them to go in the directions you don't really want them to go, and this doesn't seem to be a problem originating from the game, but the actual controller itself. Sadly, it makes swimming particularly hard in this game. Otherwise, the controls are quite robust and make a lot of sense. There's nothing really out of the ordinary. The levels are well designed, and the flow and progressions are just about perfect. They seem endless while not feeling daunting at the same time, which is something a lot of adventure games can suffer from. There are a lot of collectibles in the game, but to be honest, I was pretty lazy with finding them all. I only really strived to find the really important pickups, like the puzzle pieces, because you actually needed those to unlock new levels. When it came to the other things though, like the musical notes, I just kind of picked them up when I came across them. I didn't actively try to hunt them out. The problem with other collectibles like the musical notes is that if you die halfway through the level and you have to respawn, you lose all the progress you made picking up those musical notes and then have to go and pick them up again. This is very frustrating in my books because if you die and you've collected puzzle pieces, you don't have to recollect those. It's just not very consistent. Luckily though, this was a problem that was fixed when they re-released Banjo Kazooie on Xbox Live. Ultimately, I just never went out to seek collectibles. There's just too many and that kind of gameplay bores me to tears. Plus, I just don't have the time to do that sort of thing. I own too many damn games. I actually think I have a problem, to be honest. But I guess if I was 12 years old in 1998 and didn't have access to things like Facebook or YouTube, it probably would have been an ideal way to kill time. The graphics are quite cartoony, which makes them colourful and easy on the eyes. The N64 was never good at outputting realistic looking graphics. The models were just too jaggedy and the textures were just too low of a resolution. Obviously this is somewhat expected considering how old the hardware is, but at the time I always considered other consoles to have better graphics, most namely the PS1. Then again though, the PS1 did use a CD-ROM, so obviously they had a lot more space to play around with than just what the cartridges had. What I'm getting at though is that it's very obvious that Rare have used this to their advantage, considering the amount of quality the N64 can output. It's pretty much perfect for cartoony looking graphics. Now there isn't very much spoken speech in this game, all the characters speak like bumbling retards, but this really just adds to the cartoon factor and just the comedy of it as well. So the music changes for different types of situations. This may not sound like much, but I don't know if you've ever played an old game where the old music just repeats over and over and over. It can really drive you insane after a while. But the way they've done this is quite clever, and all the music is really well written, and it just all flows into each other. There's no real start and stop, it's just continuous, and it's great. It's too bad that Rare disappeared into obscurity after being purchased by Microsoft, because they were really pushing out some quality content in the late 90s and early 2000s. Such hits included Donkey Kong Country, GoldenEye 007, Conker's Bad Fur Day, and also Star Fox Adventures. All of these games are easily in the top 10 of a lot of gamers when it comes to the Nintendo 64. So I bought my copy from a thrift store for $15. Usually it's a lot more, probably because of the demand, but the one I bought was in a pretty sorry condition. It was nothing some Q-tips and rubbing alcohol couldn't fix though. Otherwise it's between $20 and $30 on eBay, which is pretty reasonable when you consider the length. You will get a lot of playtime out of it if you do decide to commit. If you don't have a Nintendo 64, you can also buy it on the XBLA as well, like I mentioned a little bit back in the review. I don't know how much it costs though, because I don't own an Xbox. So anyway, I've run out of script, so I guess this is the end of the video review. Thank you for watching. Like always, please check out my blog, and I'll see you elsewhere on the internet.
Yeah.